As the clock nears midnight on New Year's Eve, African American churches and African American families won't only be gathering to celebrate bringing in a new year, they'll also be ready to celebrate a tradition rooted in freedom.
Before the church was built, was nothing but bushes. And I used to think, I said, well, how in the world could they have a church built like this?
Bush Harbor is a scenario for a type of church. This wasn't the only Bush Harbor. Yeah, apparently they were the early churches. Yeah. The very first ones were called Bush Harbor.
The narrator on this Mount Zion AME Church video is talking about the very first African American churches made by slaves out of brush and trees, where they secretly praised and worshiped God. They weren't allowed to practice religion, but they did through songs, poems, and dance, also holding watch night services, awaiting the adoption of the Emancipation Proclamation, which would take effect on January 1st, 1863.
It was pretty much an outdoor sanctuary in the woods. And to my understanding, they would have blankets, wet blankets, I believe, blankets around in the woods to capture the sound so that the slave owners and people would not hear them. It's called hush, because they would have poems, singing and praising God and all that. So
Pastor Victor Cole of Mount Zion AME Church says on watch night, enslaved and free black Americans watched and prayed because at midnight the proclamation became official. It declared freedom for enslaved people in Confederate states, a monumental though incomplete step towards liberation. Jacksonville native Sandra Maureen recalls attending a traditional watch night service as a child, where church members paid their respects to those who passed away that calendar year.
As a child, there was always the deacons who stood on the four corners of the church with usually black suits and white gloves, and they made it a very formal ceremony of calling the names out of the deceased from that year, moving into the next year, and it was a calling of the ancestors.
The emancipation didn't immediately reach all enslaved people, with those in Texas not hearing the news until June 19, 1865, now commemorated as Juneteenth. The tradition remains a vital bridge connecting generations to the struggle for liberation and the power of faith and community.
We could not celebrate Juneteenth openly in the city of Jacksonville. And now to be able to celebrate Juneteenth in Jacksonville in the way that we do it has been so important, because there's only been a few people that's carried the tradition of Juneteenth on, which brings it into the holiday that it is today.
Black Christians say the same spirit that carried African Americans through slavery, Jim Crow, and civil rights marches shows up every watch night, a reminder that freedom was fought for and it's still worth protecting.